Okay, so as we just heard this morning, Great Britain will probably leave the EU and Cameron will probably resign. What are your personal thoughts on how China will react to that and whether China will be delighted on that development?
Yeah, it's not a probably. You know, the British have voted to leave the EU, and Cameron has said that he will resign within 3 months. He may even have to resign a little earlier, depending on not whether a successor can be found quickly. China is regretting the decision by the British people. China has no stake in weakening the EU, and the British exit will probably weaken the EU in some respects, will weaken it economically, may weaken it geopolitically and militarily. And China has an interest in cooperating with a strong body. So any weakening of the EU is not in China's advantage, to put it that way. The UK will probably, a UK which has left the EU, will probably start negotiating with China bilaterally to obtain good trade treaties and so on. That is quite natural, and I'm sure the Chinese will embark on that as well. But regarding EU-Chinese relations, I can't see that that will change much.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you for your personal thoughts on that. We will move on to another topic related to the South China Sea issue. So the South China Sea disputes are hitting all the hottest headlines currently, but does it really define the core of US-China relations?
The South China Sea conflict is an important issue in American-Chinese relations. But that relationship is not only characterized by conflict and tension, it is also characterized by cooperation and working together in a number of areas. We saw the Iranian nuclear negotiations recently, which were brought to a successful end, and here China played an important role and cooperated well with the United States. There have also been other attempts to cooperate, like in Syria and in other important geopolitical areas in the world. Having said that, the South China Sea is driving an important wedge into the relationship, and that needs to be de-escalated and needs to be overcome. No relationship among two big and important powers can be full of tension in one area and then you see a lot of cooperation in other areas. Also climate change is another field where they cooperated very constructively. But the South China Sea is an issue which needs to be resolved, and I think both countries should really do their best to talk together to bring it to some sort of negotiated solution. And I do think that that is possible if both parties to that conflict make a strenuous effort. And I think the best way forward is simply talks and to start negotiations about it.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question would be related to the upcoming US presidential results, and especially given the unexpected current developments in the US elections, what do you project could potentially alter US-China engagement politically and economically if the presumptive Republican candidate Trump would win?
Well, whether or not Donald Trump will win the presidential election, of course we don't know, and there are many people who think he doesn't stand that much of a good chance. But assuming for the time being that he will win the presidential election, that will be a major complicating area for US foreign policy, including US-Chinese relations. Trump, for example, has said, if we believe him, that he really wants to do that if he were elected president. He has said that he was thinking of offering Japan and South Korea a nuclear bomb. Now assuming also that these two countries were interested in developing a nuclear bomb, which I think they are not. But if they were do that, that would be a major issue of concern for the Chinese. Clearly, you know, that China would be most unhappy if these two countries were becoming nuclear powers. Trump has also said that in the South China Sea he would take a back seat, that he wouldn't be as directly involved as we perhaps see now. That, of course, would please the Chinese. You know, the China always says that all the countries who are not directly involved, who have no stake in the sovereignty of the rocks and islands in the South China Sea, should not get involved. That, of course, refers also to the United States. So China would like the United States to leave the South China Sea alone. If Trump does do them the favor and kind of takes a backseat in the South China Sea, China would be pleased. So, we don't really know what a President Trump would do. Some issues the Chinese would be pleased about. Some other issues they would be more than displeased.
Especially concerning the economical related sentence he released regarding China is actually covering most of the cheap products which could come from the US in future. So that
yes,
would be,
yes, and Trump also always says that the Chinese are exploiting the American economy, the American workers, and that is all very conflictual, and that, of course, would be a source of conflict. However, having said that, during an election campaign, people say an awful lot. Once people become the leader of a country, the President of the United States, often foreign policy changes overnight. So I'm not sure that what Trump says now will actually be put into effect once he has become president. On the other hand, we can't exclude it either. We don't know.
Yeah, sure. In response to the TPP, do you think China will be successful in crafting a trade bloc of their own to counter America's attempt at cementing their power in the global trading order, or will they be forced to eventually submit to it?
I think I wouldn't use the word submit, but the United States have, of course, offered to China to join that TPP, and the Chinese so far have not jumped on board. But there are considerations going on how to cooperate with that American-led trade bloc, if you like. And I can well see that in the future, China will join TPP and not just leave it to the United States. Mm-hmm. And I think to bring another factor in here, as you know, the AIIB, that International Development Bank, which China has created, and the United States has refused to join, together with Japan and some other countries. I can see in the long run that here the United States may quietly join the AIIB after a little while has passed, because it is realized in Washington not joining the AIIB, even trying to prevent the Europeans from joining AIIB, probably was not the most sensible policy ever. So in a little while, we can see the United States perhaps joining AIIB and the Chinese join TPP. And that, I think, would not be a bad idea either. It would really de-escalate tension in an important economic area.
Okay. Thank you very much for the interview.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you.